Have you ever noticed how some people seem to grow more isolated with age, while others remain surrounded by warmth, love, and connection? Why do some seniors effortlessly stay close to family and friends, while others quietly fade into loneliness, often without knowing why? What if the difference isn't about health, wealth, or luck, but about tiny, hidden habits that silently push people away? This video uncovers the unspoken behaviors that often sneak into our lives as we age. Habits so subtle that we don't even realize they're damaging our relationships until it's too late. They don't scream for attention, but they slowly steal your joy, your health, and most painfully, your closeness with others. Meet Julie, a 71-year-old retired librarian whose life took a painful turn when these habits began to shape her daily routine. Her story is both a wake-up call and a hopeful roadmap, because here's the truth: you can change, and this video will show you how. We're diving into the 9 most common destructive habits that can quietly lead to emotional isolation in later life. You'll learn how to spot them, understand why they form, and discover simple, practical ways to break free before they cost you what matters most. Don't miss Habit 7. It's the one that surprises nearly everyone and often causes the deepest regret. By the end of this video, you'll also receive a life-changing challenge, one that could transform not just how you connect with others, but how you feel about yourself every day. So if you've ever felt stuck, disconnected, or just curious about what might be quietly holding you back, this video is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode that helps you live with more purpose, peace, and connection. If this topic speaks to you, please comment 1 below. If not, comment 0. I'd love to hear how we can improve and create content that truly supports you. Now, let's begin with the first habit. Habit 1. Becoming too negative or critical. Sarah never imagined she'd become one of those people who constantly complained. She had always considered herself honest, direct, and someone who just told it like it is. But as the years went by, something in her shifted. It started small, just a sigh in the morning when her joints ached, or a grumble about the weather. But soon, it became a pattern she couldn't ignore. Each morning began with a comment about her aging body. Then, while watching the news, her frustration would grow. Each headline triggering a deeper sense of helplessness. And when talking to her grandchildren, her words grew sharper. Back in my day, we had more respect. At first, she thought it was harmless, just honest opinions. But gradually, she noticed something heartbreaking. Conversations were getting shorter, friends were avoiding deep topics, and her grandchildren were visiting less. What Sarah couldn't see was that her constant negativity, even when justified, was quietly pushing people away. The truth is, negativity repels. It drains energy, creates discomfort, and leaves others feeling worse, not better. And while it's normal to feel overwhelmed as the world changes around us, especially when our bodies slow down and new technology feels foreign, venting too much can backfire. So how do you turn this around? Start small. Begin conversations with something positive. The sun felt so nice this morning. Or, I had the best cup of tea today. Limit your venting. Give yourself a few minutes to express what's bothering you, then shift the focus. Don't let your frustrations take over the entire conversation. Replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of dismissing a new game your grandkids are obsessed with, say, "Tell me more about it." That one sentence can open doors instead of closing them. When Sarah tried this, something shifted. She began conversations with gratitude. She asked more questions. She smiled more often. And slowly, the warmth returned. Her grandkids stayed longer. Friends called more frequently. And most importantly, she felt connected again. The energy you put into the world is the energy you receive. If you want connection, give connection. It starts with your words, your tone, your presence. Coming up next, we'll look at a habit that many overlook, something that seems harmless at first, but can quietly damage your self-image and how others see you. In the previous section, we explored how negativity, even when unintentional, can quietly erode our relationships. But sometimes, it's not the words we speak that disconnect us from others. Sometimes, it's how we show up, or stop showing up, for ourselves. Habit 2. ignoring personal hygiene and appearance. There was a time when Sarah loved to get dressed up. She took genuine pride in how she looked. Her wardrobe was full of color and personality. Blouses in every shade, skirts that flowed just right, and her signature perfume that seemed to announce her arrival with quiet elegance. Before stepping out, she'd always make sure her makeup was just right and her hair perfectly styled. Looking good made her feel good. But over the years, that version of herself started to fade. It began subtly. She skipped a hair appointment. Here, chose looser, baggier clothes there. Why bother? She asked herself. I'm not trying to impress anyone anymore. Days turned into weeks where she stayed in the same house clothes, barely glanced in the mirror. And when she did, she hardly recognized the reflection staring back. At first, it felt like comfort. But slowly she began to feel invisible, not just to others, but to herself. Strangers stopped complimenting her. Friends stopped inviting her out as often. Her once vibrant presence dimmed, and the world seemed to respond by stepping further away. What Sarah didn't realize at the time was something powerful. The way we present ourselves to the world shapes not just how others see us, but how we feel about ourselves. Taking care of your appearance isn't about vanity. It's about self-respect. It's about reminding yourself that you still matter, that you're still here, and you're still you. So how can you turn this around? Start small. Even if you don't plan to leave the house, get dressed in something that makes you feel good. It doesn't have to be fancy, just clean, well-fitting clothes that give you a sense of dignity and comfort. Take a shower, brush your hair, clip your nails. Add a spritz of your favorite scent. Wear the earrings you've always loved. These small acts speak volumes to your own heart. I am worth the effort. When Sarah began putting on her favorite blouse again, or added just a little lipstick, something magical happened. She didn't just look better. She felt better. She stood taller. Strangers smiled at her. Friends noticed her glow. And most importantly, she saw herself again. Not the woman she used to be, but the woman she still was. Taking care of yourself is the first step to reconnecting with others. And as we'll see in the next habit, staying connected also means staying open to change. Habit 3. Becoming stubborn and resistant to change. Sarah always knew what she liked. She liked her coffee a certain way, watched the same shows every week, and used the same flip phone she'd had for over a decade. If it's not broken, why fix it? Was practically her life motto. Routine was her comfort zone. And change? Well, change was for younger people. So when her children and grandchildren started texting instead of calling, Sarah dug in her heels. I don't need to learn all that, she'd say whenever they offered to teach her. If they really want to talk to me, they can pick up the phone. But as time passed, those phone calls became fewer. Family updates, photos, birthday reminders, all were being shared in group chats she refused to join. She didn't realize it then, but her resistance wasn't keeping her connected to tradition. It was slowly isolating her from the people she loved most. The truth is, change is inevitable. The world moves forward, with or without us. And while it's natural to feel hesitant, especially when things feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable, there's great strength in saying, I'll try. You don't have to master technology overnight. But by saying yes, by being open, you give yourself the chance to stay involved, stay relevant, and stay connected. Sarah finally let her granddaughter show her how to send a simple text. She was surprised by how easy it was. But even more surprising was what came next. Daily photos of her great-grandkids, inside jokes, little thinking of you messages that warmed her heart. Her world, once shrinking, began to expand again. One message at a time. It wasn't really about technology, it was about connection. And by letting go of her resistance, Sarah gained something far more valuable than just a new skill. She reclaimed her place in the lives of the people who mattered most. In the next section, we'll explore a deeply personal habit that affects not just your home, but your peace of mind. Let's talk about clutter and the emotional cost of holding on to too much. After embracing change and reconnecting through small but meaningful efforts, Sarah began to feel more present in her relationships. But even with those emotional wins, there was still something else weighing her down, something she had avoided facing for years. Habit 4. Hoarding and refusing to let go of clutter. Sarah had always been sentimental. Every object in her home held a memory. An old birthday card from a friend who'd passed, a scarf she wore to her son's graduation, stacks of newspapers she swore she'd read someday. Her home was a museum of moments. Letting go felt impossible. At first, it didn't seem like a problem. She told herself, "These things matter. They're part of me." But over time, what once was a cozy, welcoming space slowly morphed into a maze. Every corner filled, every shelf overflowing. The warmth of her home began to vanish under the weight of it all. She could no longer find what she needed without wading through piles of items. Cleaning became exhausting. She stopped inviting people over, not because she didn't want company, but because she was embarrassed. Her once beloved haven now felt more like a prison built from memories she couldn't part with. When her daughter gently suggested, "Maybe it's time to let go of a few things," Sarah bristled. "What if I need them someday?" she argued, clutching tightly to boxes she hadn't opened in years. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just about stuff. It was about the emotional weight. Each item represented a past she was afraid to release. The truth? Clutter is more than physical. It clutters the mind. It steals space, peace, and clarity. It traps us in yesterday and prevents us from living today. So, how do you begin to free yourself? Start small. One drawer, one shelf, one box. Ask, do I use this? Does it bring me joy? If not, let it go. Donate what you can, recycle what you can't, and consider gifting cherished items to loved ones who will treasure them anew. Decluttering isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing peace in the present. When Sarah finally began the process, donating clothes, tossing expired papers, and organizing what remained, she felt something shift. Her home felt lighter. So did her heart. For the first time in years, she could breathe. She even felt proud enough to host a friend for tea. The joy of her space had returned, because she had finally made room for it. And as Sarah lightened her home, she also learned to lighten something else just as important: her reactions to others. Habit 5. Losing patience with others too quickly. Sarah never thought of herself as impatient. She saw herself as kind, thoughtful, and understanding. But as the years went on, that grace began to wear thin, especially in small, unexpected moments. One afternoon at the grocery store, she stood in line with a full cart. The young cashier, clearly new and nervous, fumbled with the bags. Sarah felt frustration bubble up. Why is he so slow? She thought. And before she could stop herself, the words came out sharper than she intended. "Come on, can you hurry up?" The cashier's hands trembled. His smile faded. And in that split second, something in Sarah broke. She saw the fear in his eyes, the hurt. This wasn't who she wanted to be. She realized, impatience doesn't just hurt others, it hurts us. It poisons our day, clouds our judgment, and distances us from compassion. So how do we change? The next time you feel irritation rise, pause, take a deep breath, ask, is this worth snapping over? That slow driver might be someone's father. That struggling cashier might be working their first job. Kindness is always a better default than assumption. Sarah decided to do just that. The why? Next time she saw the same cashier, she smiled and said, "You're doing a great job. I know it's not easy." His entire face lit up. And in that moment, Sarah saw what patience could do. It could heal, connect, and make someone's day better. Choosing patience isn't weakness. It's strength. It's a way of saying, I choose peace over pressure. I choose understanding over anger. And now, as Sarah continued her journey of self-reflection and change, she was about to confront something even more deeply rooted: the habit of over-talking and forgetting how to truly listen. After learning the power of patience and discovering how small shifts in perspective can strengthen her interactions, Sarah faced something more subtle, but just as damaging. It wasn't about how she responded to others. It was about how much space she gave them to speak. Habit 6. Talking too much and not listening. Sarah had always been the storyteller of the family. Her voice carried the warmth of memories, laughter, and wisdom passed down through generations. She loved to share stories of her youth, lessons learned, and advice she believed could help. But over time, she began to notice something troubling. The calls from her daughter became shorter and less frequent. One afternoon, her daughter finally said what had been weighing on her heart. "Mom, I love talking to you, but sometimes I don't feel heard." The words landed like a soft but painful truth. Sarah was stunned. How had she not realized? She reflected back on their conversations. How often had she interrupted? How many times had she responded with her own story instead of asking a question? Her good intentions, sharing love and knowledge, had quietly taken over the space for others to speak. As we grow older, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking our wisdom is the most valuable thing we can offer. But sometimes, what others really need is just for us to listen. Sarah made a conscious decision to stop filling the silence with stories and start inviting her daughter's voice into the room. She began asking questions like, "What was the best part of your day?" Or, "Tell me something that made you smile this week." She listened, not to reply, but to truly understand. And what happened next was magical. Their calls grew longer, warmer. Her daughter opened up more, and Sarah realized something powerful. The best conversations aren't about talking more, they're about listening better. But as she relearned the art of listening, Sarah was about to uncover another quiet habit that had kept her isolated: her unwillingness to ask for help. Habit 7. Pushing people away. Instead of asking for help for decades, Sarah had been the rock, the caregiver, the dependable one. She took pride in her independence, her ability to handle things without asking anyone for a hand. But lately, even simple tasks, like lifting groceries or reaching for something on a high shelf, left her aching and drained. One day, as she struggled to lift a heavy bag from the trunk of her car, a young man passed by and offered gently, "Need a hand with that?" With a forced smile, she declined. "No thank you, I've got it." But the truth was, she didn't. The bag was heavier than she let on, and by the time she got it inside, her back was throbbing. The weight wasn't just physical, it was emotional. That small moment of pride cost her a moment of connection. That night, in the stillness of her living room, the realization came. Refusing help wasn't strength. It was slowly creating a wall between herself and the world. She wasn't just choosing independence, she was choosing isolation. Why do we do this? Because somewhere along the way, we're taught that asking for help makes us weak, that it makes us a burden. But the truth is, asking for help builds connection. It allows others the joy of caring. It reminds us that we're not alone, and that we don't have to be. Sarah promised herself she would begin saying yes. The next time someone offered, she wouldn't push them away. A week later, she saw the same young man outside the store. When he smiled and asked again, "Need a hand today?" She smiled back and said, "Actually, yes. I'd really appreciate it." And just like that, something shifted. She felt lighter. Not because the bag was lifted, but because her heart was. She had opened herself to care, to kindness, and to connection. Have you ever struggled to ask for help? Or been on the giving end, wanting to support someone but being turned away? It's a humbling reminder that we all need each other, more than we sometimes admit. In the next chapter of Sarah's journey, we'll explore another hidden trap, the habit of being too frugal to fully enjoy life. Because what's the point of saving everything if we forget how to live? Habit 8. Being too frugal to enjoy life. Sarah had always been known for her financial wisdom. A master at saving, she clipped coupons with pride, avoided unnecessary purchases, and always chose practicality over indulgence. Her savings account was healthy, her bills paid, and her pantry well stocked. But something was missing: joy. Despite her security, Sarah constantly wrestled with a familiar inner voice. What if something happens? What if I need this money later? This fear, though rooted in caution, began to shape her world. She skipped vacations, passed up outings with friends, and said no to anything that felt like a treat. Over time, her life became a routine of careful calculations and missed opportunities. One day, her best friend Emily invited her on a spontaneous weekend trip to the countryside. "It'll be fun," Emily smiled. "We'll explore, eat well, relax. Just enjoy ourselves." Sarah's instinctive answer was no. Too expensive, she thought. But deep down, another voice whispered, "When was the last time you really treated yourself?" That moment made Sarah pause. She had spent so long saving for someday, but what if that someday never came? What if the money she worked so hard to protect ended up unused, untouched, while life passed her by? Financial responsibility is important, but it's not the same as fulfillment. True wealth isn't just what's in your bank account. It's in the memories, the laughter, and the joy you allow yourself to experience. Sarah made a brave choice. She gave herself permission to spend, not recklessly, but mindfully. She created a small, fun fund to invest in her happiness. And when Emily asked again, she said yes. That weekend became a turning point. She laughed until her cheeks hurt. She tasted new foods, watched sunsets, and remembered what it felt like to live. The warmth of friendship, the beauty of nature. This was what she'd been saving for all along. So ask yourself, what experience have you been postponing because of money? Life isn't waiting for you to be ready. The time to live is now. And as Sarah embraced joy in the present, another challenge quietly emerged. One that risked pushing away the very people she loved most, her grandchildren. Habit 9. Talking down to younger generations. Sarah adored her grandson, Noah. His visits were her favorite part of the week. She loved hearing about school, his interests, and his passion for video games. But recently, something felt different. Noah was more distant, quieter, more time on his phone, less time engaging. Then one afternoon, as Noah excitedly showed her a new app he'd discovered, Sarah sighed and said, "Back in my day, we didn't need all this technology. Kids actually went outside to play." Noah went quiet. Moments later, he mumbled an excuse to leave. When the door clicked shut, Sarah was left in silence, her heart aching with regret. She hadn't meant to belittle him. Her words were meant as nostalgia, but they landed as judgment. In her attempt to connect, she had built a wall instead. Why does this happen? Because when we constantly compare the present to the past, we invalidate the experiences of the young. What feels like wisdom can come across as disapproval. And instead of creating understanding, we create distance. Every generation faces unique challenges, and rather than dismissing them, we should seek to understand them. So the next time Noah mentioned something new, Sarah tried a different approach. "That sounds interesting. Can you show me how it works?" To her surprise, Noah's eyes lit up. He explained his favorite game in detail, his voice animated, his hands moving. For the first time in a long while, they connected, not through nostalgia, but through curiosity and respect. Sarah learned that connection doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from being willing to learn, even at 70. Have you ever found yourself judging something just because it's different? The next time that urge comes up, try asking instead, "Tell me more." You might be surprised by how quickly the gap between generations begins to close. And in the next chapter, Sarah faces perhaps the heaviest weight of all, the burden of holding on to regrets. A quiet force that robs the present of peace, unless we find the courage to let it go. Number 10. Holding on to grudges and regrets. Holding on to old grudges and lingering regrets is like carrying around a heavy backpack filled with stones. You don't notice the weight at first, but over time, it starts to wear you down. Body, mind, and spirit. For Sarah, these emotional burdens didn't show up as loud, angry moments. They crept in quietly, during sleepless nights and quiet dinners, alone. Every time she replayed an old betrayal or dwelled on a past mistake, she wasn't just remembering, she was reliving. And in those moments, the colors of her present faded. Joy became harder to reach, and the people around her felt a little farther away. Bitterness is a sneaky thief. It slips into conversations, lingers in silence, and builds invisible walls between us and the people we love. And when we hold on to these feelings for too long, they don't just live in our minds, they live in our bodies. Sarah's blood pressure went up. Her sleep became restless. Her energy faded. Deep down, she knew something wasn't right, but she couldn't quite name it. It wasn't until one night, alone with her thoughts, that Sarah sat down with a piece of paper and finally faced the truth. She poured her heart out, wrote every regret, named every wound. And then, with trembling hands, she tore that page into pieces and let them go. That simple act changed everything. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It means freeing yourself. It means choosing peace over pain and love over bitterness. Sarah felt lighter that day, not because her past changed, but because she chose to stop letting it control her. If you've been carrying something too long, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what would I feel like if I finally let it go? And as Sarah began to free her heart, she realized there was something else her body had been trying to tell her too. Number 11. Ignoring health problems. Sarah always brushed off the small signs. A little dizziness here, some joint pain there. It's just part of getting older, she'd say. But what started as minor annoyances soon grew into something harder to ignore. Then came the fall. The one that landed her in the hospital and finally forced her to face what she'd been denying all along. She had ignored her body's whispers for too long. Now, it was screaming for help. This wake-up call was painful, but it was also powerful. Sarah realized she didn't have to wait until something went wrong to take control of her health. She began with simple steps: drinking more water, joining a gentle balance class, going for regular checkups. Little by little, she took her well-being back into her hands. The truth is, many of us are afraid of what we might discover, so we avoid. But avoidance doesn't protect us. It delays healing. Listening to your body is an act of love. Preventive care isn't about fearing the worst. It's about giving yourself the best chance at living fully and vibrantly. And you know what happened? Sarah didn't just get stronger physically. She started to laugh more. She felt more alive. Her friend Emily invited her over one night for a movie, and for the first time in a while, Sarah said yes. That evening, as they laughed until their stomachs hurt, Sarah felt something she hadn't in years: joy. Real, unfiltered joy. Because health isn't just about bones and blood pressure. It's about energy, laughter, connection, living. So if there's one thing Sarah's story teaches us, it's this: don't wait. Don't let fear or stubbornness steal your joy. Make the call. Book the checkup. Say yes to that dance in your kitchen. Your body is whispering to you right now. Will you listen? Number 12. Living in the past and losing curiosity for the present. As Sarah grew older, she began to spend more time reminiscing about the past. Her stories were rich with detail, memories from her youth, tales of simpler times, and reflections on how things used to be. At first, everyone listened with warmth and respect, but over time, something shifted. Her conversations became less about engaging with others and more about reliving the same moments, again and again. Family visits shortened. Her grandson Noah stopped sharing stories the way he used to. One afternoon, his younger sister, with innocent honesty, looked up and said, "Grandma, you've already told us that one." That one sentence struck Sarah like a quiet bell ringing in her chest. She hadn't realized it, but she had become stuck, caught in a loop of nostalgia that was slowly pulling her away from the present. The people in her life were moving forward, growing, changing, but she wasn't fully there to witness it. When we live entirely in the past, we unintentionally block out the beauty unfolding around us in real time. The laughter, the questions, the new ideas and interests of our loved ones, especially the younger ones, fade into the background when we stop being curious about the now. But the good news? Curiosity isn't something we lose forever. It's a muscle, and it can be strengthened again. Sarah began to make a small but powerful shift. Instead of just telling stories, she started asking questions. She let her grandson explain the new game he loved. She watched a goofy show with her grandkids and laughed along, even when she didn't quite get the humor. She asked her daughter to teach her a new recipe. Even though she'd been the family cook for decades, she didn't have to understand everything perfectly. She just had to stay open. And that openness? It built new bridges where silence had begun to grow. Because when curiosity returns, connection follows. And slowly, Sarah realized that the present had stories worth living too. And that's when she remembered something even deeper. Something not just about the present, but about herself. Number 13. Forgetting your own passions after reconnecting. With the present through curiosity, Sarah began to notice something else, something missing, something more personal. It wasn't just about her conversations or her relationships with others. It was about her relationship with herself. Years ago, Sarah had a deep love for gardening. She used to wake up with the sun, step outside barefoot into the dew-covered grass, and gently tend to her little patch of green. Flowers, herbs, vegetables. They weren't just plants, they were her companions. Watching them grow filled her with purpose, and with every bloom, she felt more alive. But over time, life got busy. Then came the aches and pains, the excuse of, maybe tomorrow, and eventually the garden tools were packed away and left to rust in the corner of the shed. Sarah told herself it was just a phase. Then she said, I'm too old now. And quietly, without even realizing it, she let go of a piece of herself. Until one afternoon, her granddaughter handed her a crayon drawing. At the top, written in careful letters, was the title, Grandma's Garden. In the picture were bright tulips, a shining sun, and a smiling figure that looked very much like Sarah, kneeling in the dirt, surrounded by beauty and joy. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. That drawing reminded her of who she used to be. Not just a gardener, but someone who created life, who nurtured growth, who found peace with her hands in the soil. She realized then that our passions aren't just hobbies. They are a reflection of our soul. And when we forget them, we don't just lose an activity, we lose a part of ourselves. So Sarah made a choice. The next morning, she opened the shed, dusted off her gloves, and planted just one pot of marigolds. It wasn't much, but it was enough to bring her heart back to life. If you've let go of something you once loved, maybe it's time to go find it again. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to begin. So, as we reach the end of this journey, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Have you recognized a piece of yourself in Sarah's story? Maybe it's the habit of holding on too tightly to the past. Maybe it's the quiet grief of losing touch with who you once were. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the realization that you deserve more joy, more connection, more life, even now, even here. Aging isn't about fading away. It's about unfolding. It's about learning to let go of what no longer serves us and reaching back toward the parts of ourselves that still burn bright. Whether it's reconnecting with loved ones, picking up an old hobby, or simply allowing yourself to feel joy again, remember this: it's never too late to come back to life. So, what spoke to you today? Was it a story, a moment, a truth you didn't know you needed? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if this video touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me, and together, we're building a space where stories like Sarah's can remind us all. Aging with purpose is not just possible, it's powerful. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never stop growing.